Hey guys, Bix Weir, roadtoguru.com. We have the man, the myth, the legend, the future seer of all, Clif High, here to talk about what the hell is going on. You have predicted this for a very long time. Thank you for coming on. Road to Rudo people love to see you. This is going to the world. YouTube won't let me post anymore at the moment, but this is going to be free for every day. Hopefully, if you are listening to this, share it with the world. It's time to wake everybody up. Hi, Clif. How are you?
Busy. All kinds of crap happening. Yeah.
You're on what is it? Telegram. You're all over Telegram these days.
Yeah.
Give us a state of where we are according to Clif.
Okay, so we've just crossed the threshold into the big ugly. We've stepped into the house of the big ugly with the unrolling of this emotional outburst as a result of the FTX planned implosion. Okay, this was planned. This was not an accident. The people involved were chosen for their appearance, for their connections, to be in that role. So our fried bank man and his 12-year-old looking girlfriend.
I'm gonna show some pictures while we're doing this.
You go ahead. Anyway, so they were chosen specifically to for their roles here in this fiasco. Okay, and it is designed so do not be deceived. So just imagine this, right? You're the Khazarian mafia, and basically you run the global central bank system of the planet. And global central banks are in a giant squeeze now because they don't have any major nuclear war or anything to cover up the fact that they're all collapsing. And that the one currency that they've pegged it on, the petrodollar, is dying. And thus all the currencies that were pegged to that are all dying first, and it's all coming back to the USA. And the Khazarian mafia does not want the people of the world to see this. So what they had decided to do was to take the system down from the outside by pulling out the guts of all of the cryptos and polluting the whole crypto world and trying to prop up the dollar by removing the competition. And they did it through their usual tools. These people are not really inventive or creative or smart. They're just merely clever and manipulative. And so that was their goal, was this particular point in history. And but if you're going to do that, why not make some money along the way, right? Why not use it to launder money for the Democrats as long as you're doing it? You know, why not use it to get a slush fund for your hitmen as long as you're doing it, right? And so that's what they did, because they always pile on. So it's like they've got a big building somewhere with all these divisions and departments in it. And this is sort of like the chaos versus control kind of thing, right? And at the peak of the pyramid, the guy gets the evil thought. And as that evil thought goes down through the pyramid, each and every one of the departments piles on their particular individual agenda to that evil thought. And you end up with this big pile that we're living in at the moment, right? Because this is all part and parcel of the COVID. These two are entirely related. And as you will see, FTX had dirty fingers all throughout the medical industry and all the COVID testing and all of this. Money was flowing through them in order to pollute the medical system. So not just simply the political system. And so this is, in my opinion, this is, as I've alluded to on my True Social, this is the 1,000-petal lotus that sits in the middle of your pineal gland. And it is unfolding one petal at a time. Okay, we're only on petal number 2.
And I mean, and if you look at this company, and I mean, it scares me to show this picture, but these are the companies within the crypto world that these guys invested in. I mean, it is literally almost the way I see it, just from the crypto side, not necessarily the medical side or the Ukraine stuff that's all coming out, or the regulators are knee deep in this, not just Gary Gensler, not just Mark Winjet, the old CFTC commissioner, was working for them. it's a whole bunch of lawyers behind the scenes as well that both work for the CFT, the SEC, and Alameda Research FX Ventures. This is the mess that needs unwinding in cryptos. Can it even be done?
Well, here's the thing. It actually could be done very easily, because at the center of your chart, unfortunately down at the bottom, is the key component. They first bought into the data analytics, that entire group. And from there, they polluted the data analytics that pumped them up so that people were looking at them from the outside, seeing the illusion that their analytical companies had put out on the net to prop them up. Just like Bankman's huge personality pump in the media was no accident. That was so carefully designed and laid out. It was an entire media campaign. It might have taken him months to do all of that planning for it, let alone the actual implementation of it.
And here's his father, Joe Bankman, Stanford professor, huge anti-Trumper, and his mother, Stanford professor, huge anti-Trumper, and Caroline Freed's mother and father is right here, MIT. Glenn Ellison, Gary Gensler's boss at MIT, Sarah Fisher. I looked at her, Sarah Fisher. So they're married. They had Caroline Ellison, who was dating, they're all interbreeding. He's dating Sam Bankman-Fried. Sarah Ellison was actually her focus at MIT was learning how people running e-commerce sites can obfuscate information, hide information. And I'm like, holy shit, that's what they've been doing the whole time. So this whole thing is
but don't let's not skip over her, okay? Because it is Sarah Fisher. If you start hunting on Fisher through this, you're going to find so many interconnections through that aspect of her lineage. It is I think I'm correct that you'll find Fisher going all the way back to the Titanic.
Wow. And upper echelons of university, upper echelons of banking, upper echelons of
no, these people never ever walked on a road. They never came down with us commoners.
So this has a long way to wind out for cryptos. A lot of the cryptos people saying, oh, I'm going to catch the bottom. The only way to catch the bottom would be to have your crypto in an exchange, which it'll be gone anyway. But I don't know how this will play out.
Here's the thing.
Guesses?
Yeah, I've got a lot of guesses, okay, but I use historical analogs to frame my guesses. So let me move us a little bit this way. Okay, so in 1932 to 1933, there was a period that was it was slightly less than 6 months, and that caused the gold and other mining stocks to take a downward trend that they did not recover from for 6 years. But the bottom in there was about 3.5 years on. So about, say, 36 and a half into 37, somewhere in that period, right? And then they started picking up in 1939. So we were
wasn't it illegal to own gold at that time when they
correct. Yeah. So you were buying a company that was forced to sell the stuff to the government, basically, right? So people thought, well, I don't want that, why should I want that? It used to be a good company. You could actually go and take your stock and use it to get gold from them, right? So anyway, though, but 1939 was when we see the big response in the gold mining stocks. And from then on, it's basically history in terms of the recovery, right? 39 through 42, then the war, et cetera. So I think that we will have at least a 6-year period because I think we're in an echo of this bond crisis. So it is my opinion, and it's just an opinion, that FTX and the big X that's coming together will equal the 1932 bond crash, okay, that actually set off the Depression. That created the Depression. That created the massive bread lines, men moving around, being kicked from town to town to town because there was no work, and that created the situation where we had U.S. Army people firing on US civilians who'd occupied their former factories trying to get work, basically, right? All of this kind of stuff happened in this period of time in these 6 years. We had the outbreak of the Wobblies here. Socialism erupted in the Northwest. There were 11 people killed on the bridge in Centralia because they were socialists, all these different kinds of things, right? All of that occurred in that period of time. And I think we're in an analog to that I think that bonds don't matter as much now as the crypto world, and that bonds in the 1930s relative to the stock market, it's the equivalent to look at the crypto world relative to the stock market today. Now, maybe
What's the big X for?
That's what's coming in December. Okay. So we have something hitting us December, let's say 13th to 15th.
And this is from your data?
I was just going to say, yeah. And so I ran the data just the other day, and the censorship really screws everything over. But I do get building and release emotional tension values that I can sort of trust, as we see, because of the 13th. But in December 13th, it's actually going to take 2 days to unwind. Okay, so it'll be like the emotions we have now, or at the beginning of yesterday morning, when everything started really pouring out, everybody started making videos and all of that. In December, that's going to go on solid for 2 days. It'll just be that whipped up. I think it may be political. I think maybe it might be the political ramifications of where we're at now that appear in 30 days. But if we were to chart this, let me get rid of this so you can see something. But if we were to chart this, when we do it, when I run the data and I plop it in and create a graph out of it, I get something that goes along, and then we hit the 13th of November. And then it rises up, which is where we're at now. And then it goes along for 30 days, and then we get a big rise. And then that goes along for about 6 months, maybe 7 months. And the real problem is that the suggestion for, not problem, the looming aspect of it for me is what's out there in January. Okay, so somewhere out here past December's, so there's November, there's December, and that causes this. And then sometime in January, and I don't have any dates to go off of yet, I don't know if it's early in the month or later or whatever, we get a much bigger rise.
And that's the emotional.
It's a building emotional tension.
Building emotional.
Yeah, okay, so this is all done on linguistics. Building emotional tension is usually accompanied by near equal amounts of release language. They need not be compensatory. So you could have a bunch of little release language that in essence ate up all of the building tension of a big single building tension language, right? It appears from the linguistics that we're getting now that we're getting a bunch of language in December that's centered around something cohesive. So it might be centered around the FTX scandal, maybe I don't want to speculate, but it may be centered around a personality too.
Is it possible? Because I mean, I look at the FTX scandal and I'm thinking, well, you know, it's every exchange on the planet right now is completely rehypothecated, and there's problems tracking bonds, stocks, you name it.
Yeah.
Is it something that could be as big as everybody within the stock market is talking about it, instead of just like
much bigger than that, much bigger than that.
Okay,
much bigger than that. So in this, we're talking about December, the relative magnitude would suggest maybe it's 3 times what we're dealing with now in terms of building emotional tension. So I would suspect that lots and lots of the crypto world, maybe as much as like 60% of our small little universe might know about FTX in some fashion now. So we're not even, most normies, they don't know what this is.
Right.
But by the end of December, so by the end of, or as we get into this, such that by the time we're in January, people out here will know how much the personalities and the company of FTX influenced all of the stuff with COVID and how much they polluted and corrupted the medical establishment.
Wow.
And I suspect that in here, this is speculation, okay? So I don't know from any of the linguistics and the data, but I suspect that this order of magnitude up here may well be the issue of the round robin, Democrats giving money to Ukraine in order that Ukraine can buy cryptos, in order that those cryptos can be cashed out and that money can be given back to them. So it might be that order of magnitude. If we were to look at historical analogs for political scandals, it would be safe to bet that there's about a month lag between event and then explosion into the public consciousness of that event, because we see that month lag. It was actually 32 days in my estimation when Watergate happened. Mm-hmm. So we had the burglary, there was stuff going on, and then 32 days later, our entire political stuff was just in uproar, right? And it went on until Nixon left, that kind of thing. So I'm thinking it may be political, but I don't really have any linguistic clues to point me that way, other than the huge level of emotional involvement is going to sweep. It suggests that we're sweeping in a lot more, like many more times in the population than the crypto community.
So, I mean, from your graph, it looks you're going up and you're plateauing, and then you're going up and plateauing. Is there going to be a sudden release, do you think, of the release language, or just going to continue to crawl?
Okay, so this is only plotting the building tension. Okay, so you have to understand that this graph really looks like this, because we have release tension all the way along as these little things come out. So you get a sense of the release tension when you personally first saw the picture of Bankman and the woman, right, who looks like a girl. There was that, yeah, there was that.
Is it a woman?
Man, dude, I wouldn't go near that, whatever, right? You look 12, you are 12 to me, right? So anyway, though, so there's constant release language, but the trend is that we keep building an emotional component that does not get released. So now it is true, though, that after this stuff in December, we go for some time before I see any significant release language, and then it appears just before whatever happens to hit us in January. So, very upsetting period of time coming. So,
okay. Meanwhile, on the financial side, we have anything could happen at any moment. With the silver, all the silver is kind of disappearing over time. Banks around the world and central banks are actually buying gold. At some point, the price, now it might take the closing of the COMEX for any kind of, well, see, that's the thing. That's the only exchange on the planet is the COMEX. As we go through this, I have always thought that all the exchanges will shut down. They're pretty much all criminal. If they shut down, we won't know the price of cryptos. We won't know the price of gold and silver. We won't know the value of the dollar. We won't know anything as the criminality gets exposed. Now, you in the early days, back in 2017, when you were talking to me and Snippy about cryptos, and you showed me the importance of cryptos in the future, and I absolutely believe it, and I still believe it. You showed me Veritasium, and I hadn't read at the time what his his patent. He filed for patent back 2013 or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Early 2014. And the patent is for peer-to-peer transactions. I knew he was going into the Jamaican Stock Exchange. They signed an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, that they were going to bring him in because they knew they had corruption within their system. So he was working with them, and they were going to have like a sound stock exchange, or that they were attempting to do it.
That's it. Okay. But they were stymied by the same people that were sitting on Reggie in New York.
Yes. So, and that came out in
because they could not have those stock exchanges and that corruption cleaned up because of FTX.
Yep.
Right. That was their early channel to this.
So the CF or the SEC went behind the back. Reggie, first of all, the SEC said to all the crypto companies, come in, we'll work with you. Never believe that, because they went around Reggie's back when they found out about the MOU, went to the Jamaican Stock Exchange and says, do not work with this guy. And they just dumped Reggie like a hot potato. Then they came down with this bullshit lawsuit and all that. Currently, Reggie Middleton, who created, there's Reggie and his patent, and then there's the Veritasium token.
Right.
The Veritasium token, he made 100 million of them. He fully controlled 98 million of these tokens. 2 million were out there. He tried to sell more, but nobody wanted to buy them at $2 a piece. The SEC came in, and really it's the only crypto ICO they really clamped down on and are still clamping down on. Like, what was it? EOS had to pay like $20 million when they raised $4 billion because they were deep state. They were the same guys as we're dealing with right now. So my question is, okay, we've got 98 million of Veritasium tokens in limbo. Reggie claims, I have no idea what they're doing with them. They haven't sold them. They're just sitting in limbo and lockup as part of the agreement. There's 2 million tokens out there trading. Your data had Veritasium going 1-to-1 with Bitcoin at some point.
Yeah.
I think, or something to that effect. Now, it could be that Bitcoin crashes to Veritasium or Veritasium rises to Bitcoin.
Both. Okay, so Bitcoin's crashing now due to the machinations of the deep state, because they can't have an effective competitor to the crap dollar, to the petrodollar, which is dying. So it's dropping. Bitcoin is dropping in relative terms to U.S. currency at the same time that Veritasium is going to be rising. This is another curiosity here, right? First off, I got to tell everybody I don't own any Veritasium. I have no interest in owning any of these cryptos or anything. I'm not selling a position on that, right? In order to clear out my own stuff. I'm a hodler. I hodl Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that's it, guys. I got a few other coins just because I wanted to examine the technology. So, I got a couple Monero, this kind of thing, right? But I don't trade in them. So that disclaimer aside, let me state that the data suggested, all right, so I've always been keyed in looking at the data on temporal clues, all right? So, all right, so you gotta, you're a witch doctor, you're in the forest there, you're drinking your brew, all of a sudden you get a psychedelic vision of a volcano going off, and you live near a volcano, right? So what do? The issue is when, right? So if you've got a psychic vision that's 2,000 years out, you don't care. All right, so in my particular position here was a when issue. So I've always paid attention to temporal clues. And so, for instance, in my UFO forecast, it always showed up in around August, right? August to mid-September was when all this stuff roiled out. Well, for Veritasium, it was always into January, into February. And we've got one hell of a January coming. And so I could speculate let's just pull it out, wild ass scenario in which we have a generalized socioeconomic crash globally in the Western world, and situation arrives where a strong leader who might have a T in his name, something like that, shows up suddenly out of the blue to replace a now proven corrupt and illegal I guess you'd have to say not infiltrated, but actively enemy taking over the controls very rapidly. So maybe Trump comes back because the federal government collapses under its own weight of corruption, right? The FBI not prosecuting these or going after these people, judges not prosecuting, sheriffs not or marshals not doing anything, and they're all corrupt and this sort of thing and not doing anything, and then one day people just start doing things, right? So I've been involved in that in the 50s peripherally when I've seen shit like that happen, where there were spontaneous social actions, where there was a problem in this little town we were living near, and a sheriff just one night went out, knocked on a bunch of doors, came to my dad, and my dad actually put on his uniform for this, and they all went and confronted these people, and the sheriff arrested one of his own deputies and most of that deputy's family. And so if the sheriff had tried to do this with his other two deputies, they probably would have been all killed. But when everybody walked on up and they saw that basically the whole town's male population standing there, most of them armed, it went very peacefully. So I think we may have something like that occur very rapidly. If that's the case, then I can see those same people that organized that going and having a talk with Reggie, and it would be coincidentally about that time in January or February, I suspect, because of what I'm seeing now.
Yeah. I always thought, I knew at some point these exchanges have to either be destroyed completely, but with the derivatives, that's still possible. But to be cleaned up in a system where, they're supposed to settle trades within 5 days. I think they moved it to 3 days or moving it to 3 days. It doesn't matter. They're not being settled. And there's so many failure to delivers and all that stuff. So, and there's the rehypothecation of bonds, of U.S. bonds, which is, just crazy on the face of it.
Yeah.
But the reality is that system will crash on its own weight, I believe, very soon. And if it does,
it is crashing.
Right. Now, right. Well, yes.
Look at the bleed out. Look at the bleed out. Okay. Yeah. So now we have to ask ourselves, where'd all the billions of dollars, is it now even trillions, that we sent to Ukraine go? It came back into the Democrats, so they've got to really try and scramble to cover all that up, but they won't be able to. But at the same time, all of this money has disappeared. Mm-hmm. So now, what's her name? Green is demanding accounting of dollars sent to Ukraine. And now we're going to see how wasted and useless and so on. So any and all effort to support the Nazis in taking over and sustaining themselves in the Ukraine is going to collapse. We got political ramifications all around the planet to all kinds of governments that are tied in with these numbnuts.
And who would continue paying their taxes knowing that this is what they're doing with their money?
Yeah. So so the whole thing is coming down now. So that's why we have this incredible jump in orders of magnitude. Let me tell you something that'll, I don't know, it probably won't scare most people. It scared me when we had to do it. So my guy Igor and I were running the routines and stuff, and it's like the data's coming back in fast, furious, hot, and heavy. And my scale, the measurement that I'm using against it just won't accommodate that. We're just bumping up to the top of the edge. And it doesn't help me to plot things where everything is just riding along at the top edge. Doesn't show me anything, right? And so I actually had to alter for November 13th to get us up into this point. I had to alter my scale 2 orders of magnitude.
And that's what we've just, it is the 14th of November that we're recording this right now. Just to finish up on, because I got to get a lot of this from the Veritasium people, the people who don't think Veritasium has any future at all. The reality of the people in charge asking Reggie to come forward, to me, that's to save the system. If they can implement
Oh, okay. Well, to replace it, if you want to think of it that way, to replace it with a system.
Otherwise, it's over.
Right, exactly. Such that the normies don't totally lose it.
Right.
I gotcha. Okay, so that's a fair encapsulation of what happens. So it has never been a situation in my mind in reading that data that the existing deep state came to Reggie to save their ass. Okay. It didn't look like that in the data. So, but it made no sense because all we had at the time that we were dealing with Veritasium and those data runs was the deep state in operation. Yeah, we had Trump, but at that point, no one could tell if he was deep state or not, right? Mm-hmm. I would characterize it as a situation where the new guy, and that was in the data way back then, was that Reggie was being approached by the new leadership, right? Okay. Not by the old crowd. And so the new guy comes on in because they've got to keep the normies from freaking. And so they must replace the system, even though a system technically really wouldn't be needed. We can't educate enough normies to that rapidly enough. So they need that reassurance. I think the loss of surety to the normies is just gonna, it's the threshold. It's the thing we trip over. That once the normies can't be sure of all of this stuff, of anything, then everything really starts changing from that point. And we're in it now. So I'm staggered by the money involved here, right?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Just looking at that chart I showed, it's like, each company, like an investment of millions and billions, and that's just the stuff we know about. Right. And then we get to the Fed, and I've, with my work at the Fed, basically says that they're printing to infinity and not telling people about it. And Catherine Austin Fitts and her guy Skidmore have backed that up. They're working off the actual government data. And that means the government actually decided, okay, we're going to
no, the government data that they're showing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the reality is, any country in an unbacked fiat monetary system, any country just can do whatever they want and tell the world, as long as there's faith in that reporting, at least enough faith in the reporting cycles. And that's when it gets to me, when we do see any kind of change in our currency, any kind at all. To me, it was always who would have the moral authority at that point in time to decide. Can there be a decider, or do we just go back to what we used to use, or do we use them both? Do we use gold and silver as money and keep the fiat money going and have cryptos be available to people?
That's the model we've used in the past, okay, until each and every time that we've gone through one of these. That occurs each and every time, okay? So in the crash in 1893-94, which, look at how curious, it's always 3 years into the decade, right? In that crash, after that crash, money, actual physical specie other than gold coins and stuff, was so restricted that people did business in stock certificates. They would take the stock certificates to, Ford Motor Company or whatever that it was they owned, and they would go and trade with this. And so when I was a youth we went to see some friends in Walker's Hollow in Missouri, way south Missouri. And there was an old country store there where they had kept, from the 30s and 40s, they had kept stock certificates pegged in a little clipboard kind, or a pegboard kind of a thing with a glass cover over it. And they would write down how much they had given in goods on each one of these stock certificates that they were holding for these people, right? And so as far as I know, they probably never got compensated, but it was just really interesting to see that still in the 50s. I think we're going back to that, to a multiple species trading environment for at least some time. We also have the analogs in 1932, 1933, and the famous photograph of the guy buying the Bentley for a stack of silver coins and all these other trades that occurred as a result of that. So there was a fish farm in off of, I think it was on Martin Way near Olympia, that was sold for silver in that period of time, the land for it. So those kind of trades happened all around the country for at least a decade. You just don't see these kind of things in official history books because you can't put anything in, can't really cram everything in there. And the Khazarians control the history book markets, right? Yeah. So they don't want a lot of this stuff out there. But we had, in Washington State, we had Tenino, Roy, and a bunch of these other little towns working on actual wooden coins for 8 years, something like that. People were coming up to Washington State to mine gold and then going back to live in California. So it was not the world that was organized prior to the Depression. And we're coming into one of those, not the world that the way it was organized prior to FTX, right? And people don't understand yet how key this FTX thing is to all of our current situation at the moment. So not only were the Democrats thieving from the Treasury by this little circuitous loop, right? But they used FTX to finance all of the, and bribe all of those companies that were involved with killing all the people in COVID, okay? Supporting the effort to kill the people. So that's what FTX did. They did all the ancillary stuff, polluted.
I think we lost your microphone. Amazing how that happens, right? When he gets into the juicy stuff. We'll get this sorted. Oh, I got you now.
There we go. Okay. That's
You're
curious.
Now. You're fine.
Yeah. Anyway, though, so it's a situation of where FTX was a serious engine for a lot of the stuff we went through. And when this unravels, it's not only going to unravel the COVID side, it's going to unravel the all of the political side and the justice side as well. So,
and the regulators.
And I was just going to say but the justice side includes judges and stuff. So how many of these people are FTX holders, right? That kind of thing. And these people were chosen. This was a slap in the face by the deep state choosing these two individuals.
So, I mean, clearly it's bigger than these, and they're really not bright people either. I mean, they're like book smart type of people. Like Caroline Ellison is supposedly well trained in math, but I'm talking like the king of math. But you hear her speak, and it's like, oh my God.
Exactly. That's my point. Okay, linguistically, these people are not up to the level that they're claiming. There is a certain, so if you want to say somebody is erudite and educated, then you need to tell me that we're going to be talking with Jordan Peterson. Okay, that's the kind of mind that I define as erudite and educated. Okay, now he's not educated in math. If we were to talk about math, I would say Eric Weinstein. All right, and so this woman is not an Eric Weinstein. this is a very immature mind, emotionally stunted and socially deprived.
Well, I absolutely believe she's part of that pedo gang. I know she is. Here, for example, are the symbols. This is Sam Blankman-Fried's Twitter handle. Look at on his shirt. He's got that girl lover pedo symbol, and then Alameda Research that Caroline Ellison ran has got the boy lover pedo symbol. I mean, these people have been groomed and placed there. They probably had almost zero to do with what was really going on. I mean, for these two kids to run a group of companies and buyouts like this, impossible. And they're saying there was only like 10 people there at Alameda Research, and FTX had a little more. This is not them. They were the front people, the lambs to be sacrificed, if you will. It's so much bigger than all of this shit put together. You know, it's crazy. It is, but it is, like you said. Now, do you think the setup was for them to be taken out and get the blame and then bring on the regulations? Or is it something?
No, that's a side issue, dude.
Right.
Go back to your chart. The key to that thing in the chart is the data analytics. That was the whole goal. Okay. So
right down here at the bottom.
Right. All the companies down there are the people that provide surety and certification.
You lost your mic again. Every time we get into the good stuff, they start cutting off poor Clif. All right, you're back.
Yeah, that's really weird because it appears to be a hardware fault, but it just shuts down on its own. Anyway, so okay, so the data analytics and all of that, those are the people that are scrubbing or verifying data for the government and for financial institutions and stuff, right? And so these people have their hands on the data. So if you want to pollute our modern society and take it over, all you have to do is control the databases that everybody works off of, where they're always making these statements, 15% of the population does this, 85% does that, right? Well, they're getting that from these people with these data things. So if you're in control of, so it used to be, we don't care who votes, we care who counts the votes. Yep. Now it's like we care who counts the votes, sort of, but we care a whole lot more who controls the data flow that influence how those votes are created. Absolutely. And that was the goal of all of this. So FTX was intended to be an explosion. These people were sacrificial lambs, as you point out. They have to have somebody that's going to take the heat. And its goal is nothing we've seen yet. Some of it may emerge in December, but from my viewpoint, it was focused on the ultimate seizure of our society by way of seizure of the databases. So imagine, so I'm sure you've seen some of these movies on like the major services where, someone like disappears from the social credit system and they just, the cop sees something happen and he tries to hunt somebody down and why this person doesn't exist, and it turns out later on they've got a friend that, scrubbed them from the databases or something like that. It's all in the data. So if you control the data, you control the world of perception.
And that is exactly what our friend over at Sarah Fisher Ellison, that is her area of study at MIT, teaching economics in data obfuscation. It even says it on her bio right down here. Wide-ranging issues addressing such as characteristics for small products, political economy, pharmaceutical pricing.
Yeah, look down even further, okay? Empirically investigates the origins of countervailing power using the data from the pharmaceutical industry. Countervailing power, right? How to control people's minds with data.
And here it is right here. E-commerce, her best known research involves study of search and obfuscation, which means cover up.
No. Okay, so I'm sorry, Bix, but technically obfuscation simply means it is not easily seen. Doesn't mean we take that, we have a connotation of someone actively piling shit on it in order to shade it out of our existence. But it technically doesn't mean that. And from a computer viewpoint, because I've studied that, obfuscation really is the solving of a problem. And the problem is when you have a mass amount of data and you know you've got your answer in there, but the data is so large, how do you find it? That's really the best description of obfuscation, because other data is going to mask it and so on. Doesn't mean a person is actively doing it. However, somebody who is skilled in assaying those kinds of effects knows how to put obfuscation on data such that others can't see it.
All right. And let's not forget that her husband is,
by the way, she scares me. I mean, I'm
they
sorry.
They both scare me, and they're both anti-Trumpers. And Glenn Ellison was the boss of Gary Gensler and the father of Caroline, the Harry Potter lover. Caroline Ellison. God. It's just, I mean, you get down this path and it's like, oh my God. But then, I mean, I got kicked off YouTube today. It's only for thank you. It's only, and I'm like one of the last guys. I'm not completely off. So I just got one strike again. I usually just stop talking about things they care about. We have to talk about, in your data, you did have, I believe it was $600 silver at some point in time. Now, when you say $600 silver, I can't see a world where $600 silver will show up on the comics, but I can see a world where it costs $600 to buy an ounce of silver.
Yeah.
Which are two different things. And we're seeing that split now with these 50, 60, 70% premiums on silver.
And it's only going to be momentary. The data, bear in mind, is just a snapshot. Okay. And so there's this really smart guy out there, Rafi the Wise. I don't think that's his official name, but it's RAFI. He's a silver analyst. He works occasionally with Arcadia, right?
He does stuff with Chris Marcus over at Arcadia.
Correct. So Rafi's got an opinion that I'm shading towards probably being fairly realistic, and that my $600 silver under those circumstances would have been a happenstance of a snapshot at a particular time in history that I think is probably fairly close. And so Rafi has this idea that you will be able to buy a house at the time he made this video, like maybe it was 2 or 3 or 4 months ago, right? But that's pertinent because we're in times where things happen very rapid. So 3 months ago, a house that was worth $1 million in the short term in the future might be able to be bought for 15 ounces or 75 ounces of silver, he said. Okay. And so basically he's saying that 75 ounces of silver would be the equivalent in purchasing power now of $1 million. And I have a tendency to think that he's correct because of the kinds of things I'm seeing in the data. I get this idea that the price of silver will be an ephemeral, a moving target that is going to depend on your location, your ability to get silver from the place you're dealing with or to the place you want to sell it, and the stuff that's happening at that moment. So that if we're looking at silver prices, what's the price of silver today?
$21.
Okay, let's just say 20. If we were looking at that relative to where it might go, and let's just say that silver is going to end up at, hang on a second, let me do some quick calcs. Okay, so let's say that silver is going to end up at about $2,000 to $3,000 an ounce when it reaches a peak. Okay, so we'll just go on those kind of numbers, and these numbers are a fucking guess, all right, because they're being valued in US dollars, which are worthless. All right, so the $600 range is like right here, and it's momentary. Now all of these numbers are going to be with this reach it, come back, reach it, come back, reach it, come back, reach it, come back. Just like that kind of an approach as we go up.
The
So
alligator teeth.
exactly. But where you connect with a particular price is also going to be affected by your location.
Yeah.
Because as this is occurring, you might be sitting in Montauk, New York, got a little pile of silver. You hear about a guy in California that bought himself, some mega mansion in Hollywood, half a movie studio, 2 Bentleys, and 5 trophy wives for 2 ounces of gold and a handful of silver, right? And you think, damn, I want some of that. Problem is, it's not happening in your location. It's going to be entirely separate and going to depend on the staggering amount of deprivation and crashes in those localities. So $600 silver in the middle of Kansas, that might be its peak.
Yep.
Silver in New York, it might go to $2,000 because there's going to be so much more frenetic activity and a lot more of it being traded and stuff that'll move it up. But out in Kansas, it's just you and your neighbors swapping a few coins back and forth.
Do you see more, and I think you've said this before, in the self-organizing collectives that basically little communities that will, in the absence of this big overall control structure, do you see the little communities deciding what the
exactly
their barter stuff is?
Exactly, because they will be bartering. Now, again, this is brief. Okay, this will be a brief situation. I say that for a lot of reasons. One of the primary ones is the mere existence of the MAGA movement. Okay, the fact that it exists, the fact that we have that word in our lexicon now speaks so many volumes to my consciousness about planning, future, all of this kind of stuff, that I know that this entire process right here might be encapsulated and done with in less than 6 months. So this is something that Raffi talks about, that the ability to seize the value of silver across time will be a very brief period of time here where you'll have the $1 million houses for the few 75 ounces of silver, and that might only last in your particular area. Maybe it lasts 2 weeks. Some other place, maybe it lasts 3 or 4 years because of the lack of activity. So it's not going to be ubiquitous. It's just going to be really strange. But there are people that won't like this happening. Okay. And these are the people that want things to be orderly. And we're going to go back to those people in charge, and they have worked to prepare things, and we're in the process of that unfolding. So I'm actually saying that I think Raffi will be absolutely correct, and I think that maybe you'll hear stories of $1 million houses being sold for 75 ounces of silver, but I think it will happen within this next year and not beyond that. I could be wrong on the time frame because it may be much deeper and longer than I anticipate, and maybe we get sidetracked, so to speak, in dealing with the corruption and the criminality, and it takes a longer time to repair the economics because we have to be emotionally diverted in dealing with the cleaning it all out before we rebuild it, right?
So how will, in your opinion, so let's say we have that Raffi type of, big spikes and fallbacks and things like that, and there'll be a peak at some point that we've seen in the past. But in the past, it's always been the control has brought the price to where they want it, and they keep it in that range. Do you see a control structure going forward for pricing silver, or is that
for pricing silver? Yes, but I see it as a voluntary control structure, not any kind of imposition. And that is, I actually see, and we had stuff in the data that suggested that we would get, and it was shocking even back when, and we're talking like 2008 and stuff, right? When we first started getting the hints of what would become Regi and Veritasium, because those linguistic sets would build for years before we could get any sense out of them, right? But no, so we will probably have a pricing structure that will be implemented by the new officialdom. This new officialdom will have popular support, because we're going into an era of populism as we move into the Aquarian age. When that occurs, the new infrastructure created by the populist government will ask the populace to sell them silver. Okay, I think it'll be be asking for technical reasons, not economic reasons. All right. And I think the populace will respond, and that structure will evolve, but there won't be any demands that you do so. There won't be any restrictions on silver being used for other purposes and stuff. They'll just do what they can to get what they need, right?
The amazing thing to me is knowing the tiny amount of silver holders there are in the United States. I'm not counting the JP Morgans of the world or the Warren Buffetts or whatever they got. I think Elon Musk has a hell of a lot better if he wants to run his company. But I think if the government came out and said, hey, we need your silver, 99.9% of the population says, what do you mean? You need my necklace? Is that, what you want? And then there'll be, the people who hold larger hoards of silver that will, and see, maybe they'll be able to decide whether they give it or not.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Maybe because of the conditions at the time that the forecast originated, maybe we do get in a situation where something like the following happens, that we get out of this goofy WEF-induced climate hysteria, and everybody realizes the vast amount of damage that the electric car industry is causing to the planet, and we stop making those, thus freeing up all of those resources for other stuff. And that we also understand that electric airplanes are a no-brainer. They're never going anywhere. We're not going to make these. And that we then also see, thus that would free up people like Elon Musk to reconvert those resources to other things, right? And so I think we're going to get into that kind of a world where it may not, those forecasts may not have been talking about individuals like you and me that got a few coins in our pockets, so much as the banks that they take over, the car companies that don't need this stuff anymore, the 5G tower creation companies that don't need this stuff anymore. Bear in mind now, every single jet fighter has at least 1 pound of silver in it. Every single cruise missile destroys 1.5 pounds of silver when it explodes. Every single 5G tower has 1 pound of palladium or 1 pound of platinum, 450 pounds of copper, and 2.5 pounds of silver. So, once the government goes to hell and all that, those 5G towers are toast.
They're coming down.
They're coming down. People just want that stuff, right? So our world is going to be changed by us. And when we, in the process of this roiling, boiling next 100 years, we're going to go through all kinds of strange stuff. And it would not surprise me that anything we could speculate right now would at least temporarily appear. But I'm pretty sure that the dishoarding is at the larger level. I don't think they're going to care about the 10 coins I've got, right?
Yeah. They won't take your fillings out. So I want to go back to something that you had talked about a long time ago, and it was about the post office. I think you called it the blue bankruptcy or something to that effect. Is that?
The post office moves $1 billion in money that's not really seen by people at any given moment. There's $1 billion in their system. And so when it goes bust, with the currency, and they're really strapped now. Okay, our post office is teetering on the demands against it, the ability to pay employees, the ability to find employees, and the ability to keep the machinery running. Living out here on the hinterland, I have postal service maybe 2 hours a day, none on Saturday, and that's just the way it is. Sometimes we don't have postal service at all that day because nobody had come into work. So this is just when it goes, we're in a world of hurt.
So I mean, the reason I asked that is I do believe, due to the derivative situation and fractional reserve nature of our banking system as it sits, one of these too big to fail banks goes, we pretty much know all of them will go. And then it's kind of like, what do you use as the next bank? I think it will be government run, because there won't be fractional reserve. I don't know where they'd get the money and all that if all the banks have gone. That's why I see like post offices have those bulletproof barriers. And I mean, the post office is almost in every town around the country and could be useful as a nationwide banking system, just to start off again, as far as, let's just say the US, uses gold and silver again, along with some kind of crypto identifier that we've talked about. Why not use the Postal Service? And oh, by the way, they also have a patent on a new voting system that came out in 2016 that used the blockchain, the U.S. Postal Service. I think the U.S. Postal Service will be extremely more in use in the future than it has been over the past 50 years.
Are we nominating you for the new Postmaster General?
Hey, that used to be a very powerful position.
I know. But it was second only to, outside of the executive, that was second only to the head of the Department of Agriculture.
And I see us going back to that. I mean, I do think that I deserve, or not deserve, I should take some governmental post when all this shit is done, just because, you know, I've been fighting against the government for so long and what they do. I need to put my money where my mouth is. I need to put my mouth where my mouth was and work for the post office or the financial crimes unit of the CFTC or something like that. Oh, you blocked out again on your ear.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
I had something curious happen the other day. I've been contacted by two separate groups within the local Republican Party and asked to run for office.
Oh my goodness. I'll vote for you, Clif.
No. There's a problem for this, right? It's flattering. Yes, all of that's cool and so on. But what if you won? Then you got to do the fucking job.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible administrator. And
you're not that big of a people person in the first place.
Exactly.
Can you imagine Clif running around?
Oh my God. Well, hey, they're talking Secretary of State and one other rather prestigious position in my state. And it's like, no, people, you don't want my personality in that job.
Can you do it from home?
No. This is okay. Both of the jobs are, they need a serious change agent in our state, and they need somebody that can get in there and do the incredible research that's required, and then kick ass and slit throats. Yeah. I can do the slitting throats and the kicking ass, no worries, right? But I'm just too old to get into the who did this to whom and for how much and how much, you know, I don't want to know all of that stuff at this stage.
Yep.
So no, I'm just not a candidate for that, but you would be. You'd be a good administrator.
I do think I need to volunteer for something that is less bitching about it and more fixing it type of thing. But
yeah, anyway, well, universe provides and guides. It'll come along.
Absolutely. So wonderful discussion. Is there anything that we missed out on that you wanted to touch upon, or any advice? Any advice for everybody out there?
It's going to be rough, so take care of yourself, right? If you've got cryptos, no matter what, you're going to have emotional responses. But even so, we're getting to a point where it doesn't matter if if you're just in this social order. 30 days from now, you could have emotional responses to all the crap that's going on then. And so the thing you've got to understand is that shit's just going to wash over you. You know, don't take it personally. Don't let it destroy your life and your health, because it's a long road. And yeah. So I'm doing exercises, I'm doing my stretching, I'm doing my long walks, 4 miles every morning on the beach, wind permitting.
How's your greenhouse?
Doing great. Just doing, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot I can grow here in the winter that I can eat, right? But nonetheless, doing great. Everything's just working fine. But my point being that I'm concentrating on the really important stuff, which is, good food every day, just like, so here's the thing. If you really want to know how to do this, go and watch, what was that show? It's either like the movie Stalag 17 or something like that, The Great Escape, because there's this British prisoner that is just like immaculate. And everybody says, well, how do you do it? And he says, well, I watch my diet and all of these kind of things. And he lays out the 4 things you need to do to stay sane and survive the prison camp. Mm-hmm. We're in a prison camp, guys. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to get involved in all of this shit emotionally, because it'll just degrade you. And there's more coming that you cannot, that we won't be able to avoid. So, get yourself as prepared as you possibly can.
Very, very good advice. Goes back to the days we were just saying we have to be dynamic. We can't be static. We can't sit there and say we have to go. Keep your eyes open. You don't have to get involved in all the crazy fights out there, but keep your eyes open and be ready to get in the fight with my new dagger. Look at that baby.
Whoa.
I know. 35 ounces. That's a sweet one.
Well, hang on a second. I've got my new rule, 8 feet, right?
Yeah.
I'm within 8 feet of a weapon on my property at any given time.
Oh, okay. I'm scared to see what it is. Oh, samurai sword.
Katana.
What is it?
A katana, a blackened full katana.
What's a katana?
A samurai sword.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the long sword.
Wow, I got to get one of those now.
Well, the thing is, it's a really good one for chop and brush even.
Yeah.
So I go out and practice with it. But yeah, guys, it's getting scary. Now I live in a land of bears and fierce coyotes and stuff. So it's a good idea to have weapons around all the time anyway.
Yep. Very good. Hey, Clif, thank you so much. And keep following Clif on Telegram. He's posting all the time just for fun, just to stir things up, I think. Road to Ruta thanks you, and we'll see you very soon.
Cool. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.